It is finally here. Today is the day, February 29th, 2024. I am David Etienne, host of the podcast Crossroads, Navigating Business Challenges. So the question may be asked, why Crossroads? Why Crossroads from the point of it being a podcast? Why Crossroad, the name or the title of the podcast? Well, actually, my interaction with clients, their responses, their questions, their concerns are the elm of the birth of Crossroads. So having observed, having listened to clients, I came to recognize that at whatever stage or phase of a business, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be unanswered questions, there are going to be business crossroads that need to be navigated, questions that need to be answered, hence Crossroads. Before I get into the details of what we're going to be looking at, I guess you're wondering, who is this person, David Etienne of Crossroads? My background is multifaceted. I have been finance, accounting, business management for the better part of 35 years. And I've been fortunate enough to be involved or engaged in quite a wide cross-section of industries. As a matter of fact, I've had extensive international exposure, if I may call it that. I've worked extensively in the Caribbean, in Latin America. I've done quite a bit of work in Europe, and some of my projects that I've worked on vary from things that I've done with the Center for Development, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, and there's also a stint for about a couple of years when I was with the World Trade Organization on these projects. So those have offered me quite extensive experience where I've owned my expertise, if I may call it that, in both project management, business management, financial management, etc. Crossroads is intended to be what I coin a collaborative intervention. That's what I would like to think of Crossroad as a collaborative intervention. Because it's the intention that we will be engaging, or I will be engaging with my clients, not just to dictate or to offer a prescription, but to involve clients into problem solving. Problem solving. When we speak of intervention, the whole issue of problem identification is something that needs to be looked at very, very, very carefully. And so what we'll be doing through our weekly, and I would say I'm coming to the frequency with which we have our podcast, but each week as we meet during the month and months ahead, we'll be exploring a variety of subject matters. There is what we call insights into proper business management. Insights into proper business management. Insights into problem solving. Identifying solutions. And so going forward, our format is going to be multifaceted. Yes, we'll be presenting or offering or sharing with you a ton of knowledge, ton of information on a variety of business issues, business questions. Interestingly though, we'll ensure that we speak to those individuals who are what I call practitioners, industry experts. Those persons will be invited to come onto the program to share with us their experiences, to share with us some of the challenges that they have faced and have overcome, and by so doing, inform the program and inform our listenership. Now, Crossroads is your program. And so there's a third component of the program lineup. You, the listeners out there, you're experts in your own businesses. You're experts in your own industries. And so you have a reservoir of information, of knowledge that I know is worthwhile sharing. So I'll be inviting you. I'll be reaching out to you to invite you to join us on Crossroads to share the gems that you have. So all of those components will be what Crossroads will be offering as we move forward. Now, it is our belief that at the end of any session of learning, there ought to be feedback. Our feedback will come via what we call a Q&A, question and answer. Our Q&A will be of two formats. Maybe for the last 10 or so, 15 minutes of each podcast, we will have a short Q&A, and that Q&A will essentially be addressing questions that we would have received from our listenership during the week, and possibly we'll be able to take a question or two as live questions as part of that day's podcast. There's another component of Q&A, and this component of Q&A has to do with a full session, and I'll speak to that in a short while. But that Q&A is to help you to, having heard what the things discussed, is to invite you to engage with us so that we can further discuss the topics and the issues that are of interest to you. Crossroads is such a concept that is familiar with everybody. We talk about crossroads in a business context, but you are familiar with crossroads at all aspects of your life. Often we hear business owners, business operators lament. We are facing a problem. We have a business problem. My experience has shown that what is described as a problem is quite often the symptom or symptoms of underlying problems. Because a simple illustration. You feel like your head is hurting, so you have a headache, simply put. And you think that your problem is a headache. So what do? You run to the corner store, you get yourself some painkiller. Because in your mind, I have a problem. My problem is a headache. Let me get painkillers to take care of my problem. But we all know headaches are not core causes. Headaches are manifestations of underlying problems. So just as though that painkiller will address the headache but never take care of the underlying problem, it is the same way for businesses. We come up with some difficult situations and we're trying to make a decision. Boy, we have been some cost overrun. What should we do? Cut staff. Oh yeah, that's one decision you could make. Cut staff. Lay off. But maybe this cost overrun have an underlying reason that we need to unearth. It could be a case where we're offering or we have the opportunity to get a brand new contract, but that contract may require us to do some expansion of our capacities. We have to buy another machine because maybe we're close to maximum capacity at the moment. But the question is, if an additional machine is going to cost me $100,000, it has a capacity to generate an additional 10,000 units of output, if this additional contract that I'm receiving is only asking for 10 more or 1,000 more units, obviously it doesn't make any sense for me to go and make that investment. Why am I bringing these things up? I'm saying that quite often what we as business persons see as business problems, business challenges, and that we try to unearth or we try to solve are just symptoms of a bigger underlying problem. So, several questions can come to mind. Have I, as a business person, ever found myself where this cash flow thing is just not happening? I am working, business is happening, orders are coming in, money is flowing in, but at the end of the day, I'm still trying to, as it were, manage my cash flow. Is there a case where I find that when orders come in, for whatever reason, I am running out of raw material? So maybe there's an underlying problem with my inventory management. And we can go on and on and on. These are real specific issues and problems that needs to be investigated and a solution be found. So our approach is really solutions, yes, but solutions derived from the proper identification of the root cause, of the proper identification of the problem. Solutions that are based on information, based on facts, based on thorough, detailed analysis of the situation being dealt with. So that when we come up with what we call a solution, we're not trying to take care of a symptom, but we're removing or we're addressing the core cause. Now, interestingly, businesses also have a life. You must have heard of business life cycle. And that's just what it means. That a business has a life where we talk about the seed phase, the startup phase, the growth phase, the established and then expansion phase. Then of course, like all other businesses, it matures. Then come that time that few of us ever stop to consider or to plan for, which is the death phase. Yes, there comes a time in any and every business when it has spent its useful life and it's time to retire it. Now, there can be re-engineering, rejuvenation of businesses, but there will always come the time when it has served its usefulness. So Crossroads will be exploring all the challenges, but specifically identifying the challenges that are likely to arise at different phases and stages of that life cycle. Interesting things are afoot. Interesting things are in the air. Now, as far as the frequency of our podcast, the intention is to have, I would say let's call them episodes, 2 episodes per month. 2 episodes per month. And we also will be having that scheduled question and answer session once per month. So we'd say a podcast early in the month, the Q&A sometime mid-month, and then by the end of the month or thereabout, we will schedule, but you will be kept informed. Now, the structured question and answer, as a matter of fact, I would like to call it discussion, question and answer, because that will be available to our listeners who subscribe to our service. So the regular podcast is just for us all. You jump in, you listen to what is discussed, you may post a question online, you may send us a question through a platform, but then we have that special discussion Q&A session, which is where we get into the meat of the matter. We actually use the concepts, the principles discussed in the regular podcast to look at specific business problems, to identify specific roads and paths to solutions. And so that will also be available as the main discussion, question and answer session, and that will be available to our listeners who subscribe. And of course, you will definitely see a little later where we have all the ways that you can go about subscribing and being a part of the process. So twice per month, and for the regular podcast, and once per month for discussion, question and answer session. Now, some time back, I wrote an article and I labeled it, "Everybody Wants to Be a Businessman." That was my title. Everybody wants to be a businessman. And this is interesting the things that lead individuals to making that decision to open or to start or to operate their own businesses. It's interesting because the reasons vary from I am tired of working for the man, for corporate, or I just want to operate my own business. I just want to be my own businessman. Or there's also a case where if you're fortunate enough, you may have come into some inheritance, some money was passed on to you and you think to yourself, oh, now that I have this money, it's a good idea that I should invest so that I can generate some additional funds. Not a problem. All of that good reasons to start and to operate your business. However, a lot of us starting a business through those avenues as opposed to actually identifying a need that exists in the market soon realize that those reasons for starting a business, though not a recipe for a failed business, those reasons that in and of themselves are definitely not the basis on which a business can thrive. And so quickly there has to be this transition, this mindset, this change in focus to start thinking as a businessman. Okay? So those are some of the things we'll be exploring, looking at the pros and cons, the in and out of this whole thing called business management. I said earlier on that our focus when it comes to our intervention is what I like to call a more collaborative undertaking. And that's exactly what I'm seeking to have coming out of that. So I have a few suggestions, is that I would invite you that as we go from week to week or throughout the month and we look at the various topics and we have our discussions, that you, if you're so inclined, will touch base with us and tell us what are some of the areas, some of the specific concerns that you have, some of the actual challenges that you're facing, so that we can include them in our programming. My experience in business, having led me through all the twists and turns of international collaborations, regional collaborations, etc., brought me to the place where I decided it is now time for me to, as it were, open my own doors. And therefore, approximately 12 or so years ago, Etienne Business Solutions came about. Etienne Business Solutions is my accounting firm that offers the regular accounting services, tax services, you name it, financial management services, and all those stuff. Quickly, I came to the realization that my clients need a level of intervention, a level of service that was not currently being provided through Etienne Business Solution, EBS, meaning they were seeking a level of intervention that was at a more in-depth and comprehensive level. That drove me into making the decision that whereas Etienne Business Solutions, the accounting firm, is doing its bit, it's doing all that it is intended to do, there's a level of intervention that was missing. Hence came about Etienne Strategic Management Consulting, ESMC, Etienne Strategic Management Consulting. And that entity at its core is meant to address those very needs. The need for guidance, the need for strategy, the need for developing a course, a chart, a plan, a blueprint to take businesses forward. Whether to solve a point in the crossroad or to move your business from where it's at to higher heights. Hence, Etienne Strategic Management Consulting, ESMC. So Crossroads was a natural offshoot from ESMC, because we realize that through our consulting services, at the heart of our service ought to be holding hands, guiding thoughts, shaping decisions where it is most needed. And that's exactly where we're at, because that is where businesses come up and they're standing like the deer staring into a headlamp. There are so many options, there are so many pros and cons to the decision process. What do I do? Where do I go? How do I approach this? I'm at a crossroads. Where's the answer to come from? That is where Etienne Strategic Management Consulting, but more specifically, this podcast, my podcast, your podcast comes in to answer those questions. So, going forward, this is of course just an introduction of the long-awaited event, but going forward, we'll be getting some real serious discussion. But I'll invite you and I'll encourage you to check the ESMC website to ensure that you subscribe. Ensure that you subscribe. And you also need to follow us on all our social media platforms, and you will see them streaming at the bottom of your screen. Okay? So keep in touch so that you can know what is happening, when it's happening, be informed. And I'll also invite you and encourage you to not only just subscribe so that you can access the regular podcast, but you will find it very, very, very informative and useful to join us for that special discussion Q&A session that will be available to those that are actually subscribed to that service. Okay, subscribe to it. So, having said that, today is the day. The build-up, the climax. Today is the day. And as the saying goes, the die is cast and there's no turning back. We're looking towards great things, great discussions, great discoveries, great solutions. I am David Etienne, your host, podcast, Crossroads, Navigating Business Challenges.